have a gavel. Somebody else does it. Anyway, welcome everyone. We're going to get started. All right, we'll have the last couple of people sign in. Welcome to our January monthly meeting. First meeting of 2023. Happy New Year, everyone. Yeah. I'm so glad. We are so glad to see so many people here. It's going to be a really interesting evening. We've got a wonderful guest speaker, and of course, we'll have our committee reports. So I hope you all had a chance to look at the agenda. Thank you for still signing in. So you can look at the agenda. Any additions or changes that need to be made? Matt Baker's between a little bit of new business at the end. Anyone else have anything? Jared.
I want to pass the hat again for Joe Stella.
You want to pass the hat again for Joe Spalak?
He doesn't want it.
He doesn't.
Table it.
Does he? No.
No, Bob seems to know more about it.
Yes, no, he doesn't want it. We did make a donation. If Joe, I don't want to make Joe uncomfortable.
Yeah, let's table it.
Okay, all right. Anything else? Dave?
If anybody wants is coming in later or anything, there's a couple of seats up front. I got 3, 5, 4 boxes like that. Anybody standing in the back?
Yes. Tony?
Well, if he doesn't want money, maybe we do something else for Coach Keeler. Or give him the money, he gives it back the same way that
Well, we
Tom
could,
Bernard
let's,
did.
we could, I mean, I don't think that the meeting like this is gonna be a good way to discuss it. We get a lot of folks. So if you want to start a discussion, Tony, even in our Facebook group, if someone likes to say, just not on Facebook, so you won't see it, which is a good thing. All right. So yeah, I mean, again, we take care of our own. And I know Yuawan went to see him and let us know that he has his age, he has his ailments, and so hopefully he'll be on the mend very soon. All right. So if there's nothing else to add, the agenda is all set as it stands.
Stan has a
Oh, Stan?
calendar. He does a calendar every year.
Yes.
And Stan told, and we have a lot of photographers, so if anyone wants to promote their work, but I know Stan does a calendar.
Stan's a
every year.
beautiful calendar, yeah.
So if anyone's interested.
Yeah, so yes, we stand at that, the calendars. Okay, all right, so all in favor of the agenda? Yes, okay, all right, let's keep going. So, quick report, really just to say Happy New Year to everyone, to welcome you all to this wonderful space. It's great to see people in person. Thank you so much to Minna for helping arrange the space. And thanks to Frank Valerius, who is here from the library manager, hosting us here. I know a lot of you. Now, just to talk a little bit about what's coming up in the next year. There's a seat right up here. Just stand.
There's one here, there's 2 here.
Yeah, there's some seats up
2
front.
up front.
So I know a lot of you had busy seasons over the holidays. It was great seeing everybody out and about, everybody looking a little frazzled and fried, especially the Thanksgiving Day parade. It was so nice having it back. I can tell you at the observatory, we had a crazy holiday week. I mean, really the numbers we hadn't seen since before COVID. Numbers that would have been sort of like, it was all right, but now we're just bonkers, and some of the newer staff members did not know what to do, and the old time was like, well, I can tell you when the lines were over here and there. So it was great. Seeing lines again, I never thought I'd be happy to see lines again, but I'm really thrilled to see lines again. And it looks like everything is set for a busy 2023. So I was reading some of the reports from NYC Company, from City Guide. You know, you can subscribe. Don't forget City Guide. They're wonderful friends of GANYC. You subscribe to their newsletter, get all this information. And so some encouraging news. So NYC remains on pace to attract 61.7 million visitors in 2023, which is an 8.6% growth against 2022's 56.4 million visitors. International visitors to New York City have more than tripled in 2022 against 2021, giving the city the third highest increase globally. And international travel is expected to grow by 40% in 2023. 78% of Americans will spend disposable income on leisure travel in 2023, blowing away home improvement and dining out expenditures. So it's all, that revenge tourism that we talked about, people wanting to travel because they haven't been able to. We're really seeing this. And something that I did not know about, but actually went to Skift, doing this Skift, it's the travel, it's a kind of a travel and trade online magazine, Skift. But anyway, the Omnibus Travel and Tourism Act was passed along with the larger Omnibus Spending Bill 2023, which includes the establishment of an Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Travel and Tourism in the Department of Commerce. So this is a secretary level, finally, in the federal government for travel and tourism. And so this will also establish the United States Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, with membership comprised of representatives from companies and organizations in the travel and tourism industry, who will be appointed to 2-year terms and would advise the Secretary of Commerce on travel and tourism industry related matters. And then the Secretary of Commerce, in consultation with the U.S. Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, the Tourism Policy Council, and the Secretary of Homeland Security, would submit to Congress a 10-year travel and tourism strategy, not less frequently than once every 10 years. So the idea that at a federal level, we're finally getting recognition for the travel and tourism industry, which previously has just been the U.S. Travel, which is basically a lobbying group. So this is the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Travel and Tourism in the Department of Commerce. So this is really great. So I'm going to post that article. I'll share that with everybody.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah. Yeah, you can read Skift. I'll post that. And my president's report has the links in them, so that goes into the documents, so you'll be able to see that as well.
All right.
So yeah.
Is that established by Congress, or is that something that the president has
That's-
initiated on his, for this administration?
That's in the Omnibus Spending Act.
Okay.
So that's part of, so that was signed by the House, passed the House and the Senate, and then signed by the President. So it's part of the Omnibus Spending Act. Perfect.
Yeah, I might mention that we were the only country in the world with major tourism that didn't have a secretary.
Right, yeah. We did, as Harvey said, we're the only major country in the world without a specific secretary for travel and tourism. There's an assistant secretary under the Department of Commerce. So this is really great.
And GANYC lobbied for it last Destination
Yep,
Capitol Hill.
that's right. GANYC lobbied for it last Destination Capitol Hill is something we really want to be on. There's this right over there next to the okay, there we go. Oh, look, standing in the morning. Okay. So those are some of the big things more with the travel news. In terms of us, some dates to keep in mind: the holiday party. All right, the holiday party next week on Tuesday, January 10th, from 7 to 11 at Fogo de Chao, where we went last time. I know about you, but I ate a lot. It was really, really good. $35 prepaid, so you can pay Jeremy tonight. You can also sign up online. So make sure you sign up for that. Otherwise, it's $40 at the door, which is still a bargain. All right, so if you're still deciding at the last minute, but come, it'll be fun. We had our own space. Like I said, we all ate a ton, lots of meat, but lots of other yummy stuff as well. Actually, you know what? I can move Mark, just put my stuff on that chair with the calendar. That's something next to you. Sorry, I feel bad. So there's yeah, I just need a spot to sit on. Anyway, so that's the holiday party. NFTGA conference. Anyone going? Who's going to NFTGA? Said me. Yay! All right, we've got a good GANYC showing. All right, great. So more can come. You can still come. It's Michael Dillinger's show. Come on, that is support. MD. All right. So anyway, it's gonna be great in San Antonio, Texas. On the 25th to the 27th. Everybody's gonna be there. I think we'll have a really nice time. This is NFTGA. WFTGA, the World Federation of the International Tourist Guide Day. That is February 21st. And February 21st and 22nd, they're going to have some kind of virtual event. So watch this space. I don't know what the details are, but something will come about that. Apple Awards, we'll get more information about that later on, but remember March 6th at Lincoln Center. And this is not an official IT report, but just to let you all know, we are hoping to have a new website, a refreshed website in the springtime. So we're working on that. There's a lot of details on it, but we are working on it. IT committee is working on it. All right, so that's really it in terms of my report. Like I said, again, it's really great to see everybody.
Did you say something about Lincoln Center related to the Apple Awards?
It's across the
Yeah.
street.
Well,
That's really not accurate.
Yeah, it's across the street.
well, across the street,
It's not here.
Lincoln.
No, but I mean, it has no connection to Lincoln
No,
Center.
no, it doesn't.
It's Kaufman Cultural Center on 67th Street.
My apologies,
It's in
Matt will
65th Street.
clarify everything for us.
Okay.
Yeah. My apologies. I call that whole area. Many of us do, but the Lincoln Center area.
Maybe.
So that's really it from me. I'm going to ask Kevin Lawrence to come up to introduce our speaker.
All right, good evening everyone and Happy New Year. It is my great pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, Eric K. Washington, and he's going to be talking about the legacy of the former Colored School Number 4, a 19th century Black heritage site in Manhattan's Chelsea neighborhood. New York City has too few extant buildings that reflect the complex historical trajectory, milestones, and breadth of the African American experience in the great metropolis. But there's a city-owned building hidden in plain sight in Manhattan's Chelsea neighborhood that sheds a telling light on Gotham's forgotten past, the former Colored School Number 4. Drawing from the city's own documentary resources in the municipal archives and elsewhere, historian Eric K. Washington is going to discuss tonight his advocacy of this curiously idle schoolhouse building, recently featured in the New York Times and other print and broadcast media, which has stood on West 17th Street for over a century and a half. We're going to learn more about the notable teachers, students, and visitors associated with this forlorn yet remarkably surviving Black heritage site that is prompting a considerable number of community voices to call for its official city landmark designation. And Eric K. Washington is a licensed New York City tour guide. That is the least of his accomplishments. He's also an independent historian and author. In 2018, he initiated the still ongoing review process of the former schoolhouse by the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission. He also featured the school in his GANYC Apple Award-winning book, Boss of the Grips, the Life of James H. Williams and the Red Caps of Grand Central Terminal, which also won the Herbert H. Lehman Prize for Distinguished Scholarship of New York History and special recognition as a finalist for the Municipal Art Society's Brennan Gill Prize. And if you haven't read this book, as a New York City tour guide, you'll learn so much about Black history, about the Harlem Renaissance, about Grand Central Terminal, labor history. I highly, highly recommend it, and well, it won an Apple Award, right? So without further ado, Eric K. Washington.
Oh my gosh, am I mic? I have to use my theater training. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hadn't factored that in. Well, thank you for the invitation. Happy New Year, everybody. It's a pleasure to see so many of you in full-size person that I've only seen like this big on a Zoom, Hollywood Square. And it's great to see so many people anyway. Thank you, Kevin, for that introduction. I'm going to read this. I've got this sort of scripted, and I may repeat some things that Kevin already mentioned. How do I turn this on?
Just touch the touchpad.
$99 is the insurance.
That's what I do. I'm left alone. Thank you. So, 2 years ago, I was honored to receive the GANYC Apple Award for my book, Boss of the Grips. I think somebody has it. You haven't seen it go. The Life of James H. Williams and the Red Caps of Grand Central Terminal. Thank you, Beth. And the subject of that book is what connected me to what I'm here to talk about this evening. The former Colored School number 4 is just a few blocks away from where we're sitting right now. And I first became aware of this languishing schoolhouse about 5 or 6 years ago while I was doing research for the book. Williams was one of its late 19th century graduates. In November of 2018, as Kevin mentioned, I appealed to the New York City's Landmarks Administration, and I filled out what's called an RFE, Request for Evaluation, for the building to be designated. And we're going on 4 years plus now, and they're still sitting on the application. So their response is that they are still reviewing it, but I started last year applying a bit of pressure by doing this sort of thing, by talking to people and kind of sharing the information. And that has had a wonderful result of generating a lot of direct letters to landmarks, to the mayor, from local community board, local co-op boards, individuals, and an online petition, and I'll show you the link for that, which is now over 2,000 signatures strong. So the city's own resources, which many of you, I don't know how many of you do some of your own research for your tours, but you may know that the city's own resources, the municipal archives, is just really incredible. And it was really invaluable to me in doing a lot of this research from the tax photos, which many of you may be familiar with, that went block by block from like 1939 to 1941, showing what was there, photographing what was there on that block at that time. Vital records such as birth, death, and marriage certificates. I'm also on the advisory board for the Municipal Archives, and about almost a year ago, we put those online for free, so you can access those and you never get back to sleep in the middle of the night, just looking up somebody's death certificate or marriage record or birth certificate. All these things that help me put the building in context with the surrounding neighborhood, and that surrounding neighborhood includes the Jefferson Market where we're sitting and other Greenwich Village, Chelsea, and Flatiron area sites that many of you already know well. So I'm happy to share some new information, I hope, that might illuminate some of your visits to what I had previously thought, for many years, as just being the Housing Works thrift shop block. And it's more than that. So as a New Yorker, I know there are woefully too few extant properties that reflect the complex trajectory, milestones, and breadth of the city's African-American experience. I also know that unlikely doorways often reveal essential but forgotten stories, as demonstrated by some of the many people and events that you're about to meet that have passed through the doors of the former Colored School number 4 schoolhouse. For 34 years, from 1860 to 1894, the three-story building, at 128 West 17th Street embodied New York City's official racial caste education system. And that spanned most of the 19th century. Successively known as, three names, successively known as Colored School number 7, Colored School number 4, which is used most often for expediency, and then Grammar School number 81. The old schoolhouse duly served numerous working class African-American families that were once concentrated in Chelsea's West Side blocks, what was then part of the city's dubious Tenderloin precinct. During the Civil War, the post-bellum Reconstruction era, and the ensuing decades of New York's gritty-bordered Gilded Age. Colored School number 4 was integral to an informal plexus of other African-American schools, churches, enterprises, missions, and societies that gave anchor to Lower Manhattan's growing black enclaves as they drifted upwards to West Side neighborhoods like Hell's Kitchen, San Juan Hill, and indeed this late 19th century school graduated some of the progenitors of a myriad citizen leaders who effectively made the community of Harlem, much farther uptown, the renowned 20th century capital of Black America. And to my knowledge, the 17th Street building represents Manhattan's only surviving colored schoolhouse, and possibly the borough's oldest extant public education facility as well. But how did it come about? Historically, the school was one of a series of schoolhouses that evolved from the African free school system, and that was established in 1787 by the New York Manumission Society to educate Black children at the beginning of what became a protracted process of gradually abolishing race-based slavery throughout the state. The structure is a rare example of the modern primary schoolhouse, as it was called, designed in 1843, and adopted the next year by the Public School Society as an efficient plan to be dispersed around the city, which then we're just talking about Manhattan. However, it was probably not built before 1853, 10 years after its design, when the Public School Society merged with the new Board of Education. Sketch depicts an identical facade to the schoolhouse building on 17th Street. How many of you have been by the building and actually know, have seen it? Okay, so a good number. So this is a sketch, a generic sketch for all these schools, and you can see the fenestration of the windows and the doorways matches the actual building in the lower right corner that is there today. Give or take some variations, the dispersed schoolhouses basically followed the prescribed exterior and interior plans, which colored school number 4 also mirrored. And here, in this image, you see, compared to the 1853 rendering of the 1843 design, is how the old schoolhouse appeared in 1908, the two photos on the upper right, where the brick is still exposed as it would have been originally when it was an active school. Below the black and white, that's one of the tax photos from around 1940, and then present day today. From at least since 1853, the little building housed several variously numbered primary schools by the address of, and here's where it gets confusing, 98 West 17th Street. Today it is 128 West 17th Street. For some reason that I still have not been able to figure out, the city renumbered the lots on a few blocks, including 17th Street, by just adding 30. So 98 became 128. This is around 1868. And this ended in September 1860. So this shows a couple of schools like public primary schools, 27 and 28, 25 and 26, in 1853, 1854, up to 1857, occupied the same space of that building. And that ended in 1860, when the Board of Ed elevated the former colored primary school, number 1, which was around the corner on 15th Street, located in the basement of the African Union Methodist Church, by merging it with a new Ward Grammar School at this 17th Street location. And this would be called then Colored School number 7, under Principal Charlotte S. Smith. In addition to the new colored ward schools, number 7's day school for children was also an evening school for adults. And just before Christmas in 1860, a guest who was attending the close of the first term of the evening school wrote that the schoolhouse was filled to its utmost capacity, there being not less than 500 present. And you wouldn't get that impression from walking by the facade that it could fit 500 people. But you'll see later on that when I take you inside, that you can actually see where they would have fit quite comfortably. So large a number of grown persons, some 60 and 70 years of age, received their certificates of regular attendance. A measure of the reception's significance that year might be weighed by the participation of this gentleman in the upper left corner, James W.C. Pennington, who was an internationally renowned abolitionist, minister, writer, educator, orator. He was based in Brooklyn in New York, and he came to say the benedictions for the school. Ultimately, however, the school's driving spirit would be its redoubtable principal, down below on the right, Sarah J.S. Tompkins. And on April 30th, 1863, as the Civil War raged, her 31-year tenure began when she was appointed to replace the late Charlotte Smith, the recently deceased principal at Colored School number 7. Tompkins had to show her medal within the very first few months. On July 14, 1863, a crowd of unruly whites spilled into West 17th Street during New York's infamous draft riots. Just the day before, such a rabble had attacked the Colored Orphan Asylum up on 5th Avenue and 43rd Street, irrespective of the children inside, whom the staff had fortunately ushered to safety through a back door, and burnt the orphanage to the ground. A newspaper description suggests that Principal Tompkins now faced a potentially similar scene of terror. The mob congregated in front, a newspaper reported, while the school was in session. It seems that 2 colored women whom they had pursued had taken refuge in the school building, and they were determined to get at them. The teachers promptly barred all the doors leading into the street, and the rioters, after a few ineffectual efforts to break in, turned their attention to a little wooden shanty on the opposite side of the street. So the draft riots of 1863 amounted to 5 days of carnage and murder. The school emerged unscathed. However, the incident surely left deep-set emotional scars. Months later, newspapers reported a Thanksgiving festival of the colored children of Ward School number 7, under the charge of Mrs. Tompkins, in gratitude for their escape from death during the late riots. By the following spring, the unrest on 17th Street had ended, but just a few blocks east of the schoolhouse, the street was a scene of bustling activity that captivated the pupils. Set up along the 17th Street side of Union Square, the Metropolitan Sanitary Fair of 1864 was a monumental civic festival to aid the Union Army's sick and wounded. Tompkins notably engaged the school in the city's major war relief effort, albeit off-site. Farther down, at Shiloh Presbyterian Church on Prince Street, which was then under Reverend Henry Highland Garnett, the renowned abolitionist, educator, and later statesman, Colored School number 7 gave a musical and dramatic benefit in aid of the soldiers. No doubt for the newly formed 20th U.S. Colored Infantry in particular, who ceremoniously received their colors in front of the Union League Club on 17th Street that was directly across from Union Square. Soon afterwards, Reverend Garnett, himself a graduate of New York's earlier African free schools that I mentioned, he left New York for a ministry in Washington, and then for a presidency of Avery College in Pittsburgh, where his wife died in 1870. Returning to New York, Garnett inevitably reconnected with Tompkins, who was ever a community activist throughout her tenure at the school on 17th Street. In March 1871, Tompkins initiated a series of public lectures in the schoolhouse, by now renamed Colored School number 4. The first speaker was Reverend Henry Highland Garnett, whom Sarah Tompkins married 4 years later, becoming ever after Sarah Garnett. Besides Henry Highland Garnett, other notable visitors associated with the school included Lieutenant Governor Oscar James Dunn of Louisiana during the Reconstruction period, Henry Ossian Flipper, who was a cadet when he visited the school, and they were celebrating him because he would become the first black graduate of West Point. From across the pond, Sir James Bain, Lord Provost of Glasgow, who visited New York and Colored School number 4 while he was here in 1876 for the centennial. And J.A. Arnaud, who was a black Shakespearean actor and journalist, who did fundraisers for the school. He also was responsible. I found some information where when Grant's tomb was being built, he did a production of Othello with his company. It was an all-black company to raise money for the subscriptions for Grant's tomb, which is another story, but with the school. And newspapers also cited the school's engagement during notable events, including the presidential inauguration of Ulysses S. Grant, the memorial to U.S. Senator Charles Sumner, who's been back in the news recently. You may have heard of him. He was the senator who was beaten unconscious by another senator on the floor of Congress back in the 19th century. And they participated in the memorial of U.S. President James A. Garfield, who was the president who would appoint Henry Highland Garnett to be Minister of Liberia. And about 30 children from the school participated in Louise A. Smith's The Little Mountain Fairies, a play that she wrote that was presented at Chickering Hall, which is in the vicinity of Bed Bath and Beyond. It's no longer there, Chickering Hall, but it's where Oscar Wilde made his first speaking appearance when he came to New York. By the early 1880s, the state legislature was poised to let the Board of Education absorb its handful of Jim Crow colored schools into the general system. And these schools were admittedly sad relics of the slavery era. And yet, the diligence of black educators had bestowed them with a distinct pride of place in the African American communities that they served. And maybe it's telling that in 1887, Tompkins's pupils were celebrating the anniversary of the 15th Amendment, a law peculiar to black interests insofar as it guaranteed voting rights regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude, almost 2 decades since its passage in 1870. At any rate, the proposed closure of these schools galvanized Sarah Garnett and others to a mass protest. Reportedly encouraged by a letter from Frederick Douglass, they implored the Board of Ed either to retain black teachers as equals with white teachers, or else to leave the colored schools as they were. And ultimately, in 1884, a legislative act signed by then New York State Governor Grover Cleveland spared just 2 of the separate race-based schools. One of them was colored school number 4, thereafter designated grammar school number 81. But 10 years later, in 1894, upon determining it to be no longer required for school purposes, the Board of Education resolved to sell the building, which it obviously did not. For her part, Sarah Garnett remained an activist educator, community leader, and suffragist. In 1895, she co-founded an association to build a community hospital. Later, in her native Brooklyn, she and her sister Susan McKinney Stewart, New York State's first black woman to earn a medical degree, founded the Equal Suffrage League, which in 1908 joined with the National Association of Colored Women to petition the U.S. Congress for women's right to vote. And her memorial in 1911, when she died, personal testimonials were heard from her active allies, civil rights activist W.E.B. Du Bois and redoubtable journalist Ida B. Wells Barnett. This was commensurate with the high reputation that Garnett had built at colored school number 4. By the time the school closed in 1894, Garnett's diligent core of African American teachers had long made it a singular pillar of the black community. The school's other remarkable teachers included J. Imogen Howard, who you see here. She was a Bostonian who in 1868 joined the teaching staff at colored school number 4. She was an award-winning essayist as a child and also a musical prodigy. In 1893, New York Governor Roswell Flower appointed Howard to represent New York State at the Columbian Exposition in Chicago, the only black manager at that World's Fair. And then in 1900, she was the only black winner of the newspaper, the Evening Telegram's Great Teachers Competition, who was sent to the Paris Exposition. Then there was William Appo, who fascinates me, and I'm kind of obsessed with this fellow. He joined the school staff in 1865, not being able to find an image of him. But he was one of the most influential African-American musicians and music educators of the 19th century. He started with the legendary black maestro Frank Johnson in Philadelphia, with whom he toured England in 1837. They purportedly performed before Queen Victoria. They were said to have been the first American musical ensemble, white, black, or otherwise, to travel to England as an ensemble. And aside from music, he was a music teacher at several of the colored schools. But aside from music, he was also aligned to white abolitionists Gerrit Smith and John Brown, and to black suffrage activists upstate in New York's Lake Placid area. Apple's daughter, Helen Apple Cook, also taught in the colored school system at colored school number 6. And she kind of presents an interesting story of what these schools faced. There's another figure you may have heard of, Elizabeth Jennings, who's often referred to as 19th century Rosa Parks. She had a famous case in 1855 where she sued, where she had been thrown off a trolley line and won the case. She got this hotshot lawyer, 24-year-old Chester A. Arthur. He wasn't a hotshot yet, but he would become president. and won the case. Ostensibly, it desegregated public conveyances. It didn't exactly. But she was also a school teacher in the colored school system, and she and Appo's daughter, Helen Appo here, graduated together. And at the graduation ceremony, which was held at the Academy of Music, they were not allowed to receive their diplomas on stage. They had to receive their diplomas off stage. So this was part of the zeitgeist of the time of the schools were active. Another teacher was Susan Elizabeth Fraser, who descended from New York ancestors who fought in the American Revolution. And she grew up in the same block, 17th Street, as the school where she was graduated in 1882. In 1895, her landmark lawsuit resulted in her becoming New York City's first black teacher assigned to a mixed public school. In 1911, Fraser spearheaded a call to action of women's clubs to care for the aged and indigent Harriet Tubman. During the Great War, or World War I, too, you youngins out there, Fraser was president of the Women's Auxiliary of the Old 15th National Guard, the African-American troop best known as the 369th Harlem Hellfighters Regiment. She was purportedly the first black woman to be buried with full military honors. I'm still trying to corroborate that. And in 1919, that same paper, the Evening Telegram, their competition, based on public votes, sent Fraser on a teacher's delegation to the recently hushed European battlefields. And notable graduates included Walter F. Craig, a musical prodigy hailed as the representative colored violin soloist and musical director of the race. In 1861, his family moved from New Jersey to New York City and enrolled him in the 17th Street School. And it was then called Colored School Number 7 at 98 West 17th Street, but it had become Colored School Number 4 at 128th, at the same building, when he graduated in 1869. In 1870, he debuted as a violin soloist at Cooper Union and formed his own Craig's Orchestra in 1872. In 1885, he conducted a German orchestra which performed for a Black Society Ball at Madison Square Garden. In about 1886, he was the first black conductor admitted to the all-white Musical Mutual Protective Union. Craig's famous orchestra was one of the preeminent late 19th, early 20th century society orchestras for black and white audiences alike. And then, who's dear to my heart, James H. Williams, the eponymous subject of my biography, Boss of the Grips, the life of James H. Williams in the Red Caps of Grand Central Terminal. As the station's chief Red Cap attendant for nearly half a century, Williams presided over its essential Harlem-based workforce that produced this city's first black police officer, Sam Jesse Battle, Columbia's first black architecture school graduate, John Wilson, and such still familiar names as Paul Robeson and Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who were Red Caps. So, former Colored School Number 4 opens, I think, a singular window on the African-American narrative of New York City's history. It's heartening to me that a few years ago, an unrelated Brooklyn public school was renamed in her honor, Sarah Garnett's honor, and that just last year, in nearby Chelsea, PS 11 on 21st Street, a student initiative successfully got the school renamed the Sarah J. Garnett School. I believe justice dictates that we preserve this rare heritage site, the last surviving colored schoolhouse in Manhattan, and honor the impressive lives that filled its rooms. And I think its protection is vital to the stories of those who pass through its doors. And thank you for inviting me. Very quickly, I think it's field some questions. I'd like to take you inside if you'd like to visit. So just a couple of weeks ago, after much ado, the Department of Sanitation, which has controlled the building since the 1930s, allowed us in through the orchestrations of City Councilman Eric Blatcher. And so I went with a delegation, including some members of Community Board 4 and Eric Blatcher's office. So that small seeming building from the facade that you saw from the street looks rather spacious inside. So this was the ground floor that you enter on. And I don't know if you recall from that sketch, at the rear of the building it seemed to taper to the sort of narrow appendage. So on either side of that appendage are these narrow yards. So that door in the rear, the one to the left, gives on this little jar here. And then this is that inside of that appendage on the ground floor. And then this open door leads to this other side, again going that direction, and then looking to the right as you go through, there's a stairway that goes up to the second landing. And there's this old, I don't know for sure, but it seems to be old enough to have been like part of the 19th century framework of the school, infrastructure of the school, with this glass wall, glass and iron frame wall. And on that second floor, those windows that you're looking at from the outside, which appear to be, if not the original windows, they were replaced so long ago that they were still replacing them to emulate the original windows, which they wouldn't do today. So it gives it this kind of very sort of undesirably rustic appeal. And this is the rooftop, which you can see there's room for a lot of activities. You can have classes or the garden or whatever on the roof. And if any of you are interested in finding out more, there is an ongoing petition that I mentioned. If you have your smartphones, the QR code will take you there, but it's on change.org. So I'm happy to open up some.
And we'll put on the Facebook page the link to this as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, for Facebook. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Eric. That was reinforced for me what I really love about what we do as a profession. You can stand in front of one particular building and talk, just endlessly, and just learn more and more as you dive deeper. I have an initial question. It might sound like a really dumb question, but I always thought that Little Africa was, sort of confined, that what was called Little Africa to Greenwich Village and sort of like where Minetta.
Yeah. So it's a great question. It was popularly known in the 19th century, that area around Thompson Street, Sullivan, Bleecker, as Little Africa. Truth be told, it was very common in the 19th century, anywhere where there was a congregation, a significant, perceptible congregation of African Americans, was dubbed Little Africa. But that seemed, in Manhattan, that seemed to have stuck. But even Harlem at some point, But it probably comes up more in at least the newspaper literature that section was called Little Africa.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just like the demographics didn't stretch of blacks going along, say, 8th Avenue or 6th Avenue up to the Tenderloin, or
I'm sorry.
up towards like West 17th Street, and did it go, where?
Oh, the stretch of Little Africa?
Yeah.
It was kind of disjointed, but it was concentrated around that area, around Bleecker, Thompson, Sullivan Street. But the populations in general, not just black populations, are kind of moving northward up the island. So it's kind of stretching. So, and some things are kind of are subjective. So yes, if you're going to school, where this colored school was on 17th Street, and you're living a few blocks south, while you're at the school, it's Little Africa,
Right.
Yeah, you kind of carry, your place with you.
And two questions.
Wait,
I'm sorry,
sir.
Kevin will
You
take
have
it.
somebody?
We'll set the question.
Jonathan?
And two questions. First one is, what is the sanitation department, or what were they doing with that building? And the second is, are there plans for the building, thoughts, ideas about what the building could be if it is landmarked?
Two great questions. So sanitation, as I mentioned, the Board of Ed discontinued the building in 1894 and said, we're gonna sell it. They didn't sell it. What they ended up doing was giving it to just actually some Civil War veterans, the fire zouaves, the zouaves who wore the color, and they called them fire zouaves because they were particularly recruited from the city's firemen. And they used it sort of as a clubhouse until about the 30s. And then another city agency took it over, which was easy for the Board of Ed to kind of do, to pass it off to another city agency. So that tax photo, I won't go back to zoom it in, but you'll see it says Department of Sanitation, and it's still over the door says fire veterans on there. So whether they were using it at the same time or they just hadn't removed one of the signs of, I don't know. And the other is that there are not plans, but yes, there are ideas about how the building should be used. So what I did when I started, it's too small to read, but I set up kind of an ad hoc committee of people to just kind of think, people I've worked with over the years on various projects. architectural historians, architects, journalists, general historians, history buffs, whatever, to put on their thinking caps, because the building won't belong to us, you know. But to have some ideas about how it should be used. And there's a general consensus that it would be very nice if the building could be used in a way that sort of fits the theme of how it was used before, as an education facility, certainly having maybe a gallery space. They had, it was very musical. They sang, so they had this great music teacher, so a music space. So I don't think anybody's gonna put the reins in my hand and say, do what you want. But if they did, I would say, I want a full kitchen here, you know, and I want a little studio for people to do broadcasts, you know, podcasts and that sort of thing. So there are not plans because it's premature for plans. The first thing is to get it landmarked so it's protected. The biggest issue now is that, so sanitation had a report done last February, which I've seen. And the good news is that the assessment is that the building is in remarkably stable condition, considering it's been standing there since about 1853. The bad news is that it's got these issues of you know, water damage. Everything starts at the roof and goes from there. But the good news is that it does not present a public safety issue. So they can't use that excuse to, you know, accidentally lose their grip on the wrecking ball, like, oops, you know. And that's happened like about 10 times, as I understand, to landmark buildings in the city in the past year. So that report is very useful. But it's premature to start laying plans now. First thing is to get things shored up and getting it landmarked.
Okay, Myra, I saw your hand.
Is there any connection to the Underground Railroad?
Only obliquely, because the school was active during the Civil War. New York State slavery had been abolished in the 1827, but activists were still active in the Southern cause. Plus, you had runaways coming to the north. So I say obliquely because people were coming north, and there were advocates and activists who were connected to the school who were very, very involved with this issue. I like to think that maybe people were being harbored in the school for the first year, but there's no evidence to point to that. There's no evidence to point against it. It's not unlikely, though, given the personnel that was working there and or who were parents of kids there.
Thank you.
You had a question, sir?
Yeah. Did the black teachers get paid the same as the teachers at the white school?
So that was an issue. They had the same training, although as I understand, it was a different school, segregated school for the teachers to learn. And this was an issue when they were going to absorb the school, because it seemed that they would, as they got integrated into the general system, they would kind of fall behind in terms of seniority, that they would not get the same pay. I haven't been able to get clear specifics as to, because a lot of this is, you know, what I've been able to find with like during the pandemic, we're not accessing records that were online, and I just haven't found that yet, saying that, you know, in the white schools, they got this pay, and the black schools got this pay. So I believe there was some discrepancy, but I don't know how much it was.
Jared? Over the years, how was the tuition paid?
What do you mean tuition?
Was it always taxpayer supported, or was there?
It was part of the public school system. It was just a segregated part of the school system. So it had the same rules as the other general public schools, but these schools were just set up to keep the races separate.
You mentioned that a local school here in Chelsea was renamed the Sarah J. Garnett School. Can you tell us about what the students did?
Yeah, so these were like 4th and 5th graders, and I think they were part of this like the school's history club and stuff. And their school was named for William T. Harris. I think that's the name. And he was like a late 19th, early 20th century educator. Did a lot of good stuff, I understand, but also he was like this big advocate of Native American, I forgot what they called it, but it was like this a similar, it was like really aggressive and awful. And kids didn't like this, so they wanted to pick a name of somebody who they thought they could be proud of to represent. And I understand they had about 30 names, and they filtered them all down, and they just kind of fell in love with Sarah Garnett, as everyone is wont to do. But they did this, and they pitched this, the principal went for it, and the Board of Ed went for it, and it officially changed last year, July 1st. So their school went from William T. Harris School to the Sarah J. Garnett School. What was funny though was that they didn't know about this campaign that I was spearheading around, a few blocks away. So they contacted me, so we're hoping to maybe coordinate
those
something
kids
together.
pick
Exactly.
Yeah. I think John in the back.
Thank you. Thanks for speaking with
Use
us.
your height. I'm on a platform and I'm now only installed.
Yeah, and thanks for Kevin for arranging you. But I'm gonna squeeze in two quick questions if I possibly can. First, what was the role of religion at the colored schools? And was it, do you know about how religion, schools were a battleground for religion in public schools among Catholics and Protestants? Was there any issues like that where African Americans getting the religious education that they would have wanted, if there was such? And secondly, what was Sarah Garnett's, if I got that name right, attitude towards the 15th Amendment, which allowed black men to vote? And did she fall on the same squabbles that happened between Frederick Douglass and, white suffragists? Thank you.
So the first question, I'm sorry, quickly.
Religion.
Religion. So I don't know that religion, because it was under the Board of Ed rules, I don't think that religion was taught in the schools, because it's a public school. But it's demographic of the students, they come from families that are, it's a church demographic, but of different churches. So you have Baptists, you have Episcopalians, you have Catholics, you have, so it was a common, mix that you would find anywhere else. So I don't think the school, when they have different incidents, like I mentioned at Thanksgiving with the school, they went down to the Shiloh Presbyterian Church, which is the progenitor of St. James Presbyterian Church, the famous church in Harlem. There are other churches that figure into the school's history that hold events for them. So in that sense, they all kind of, threw their doctrines out the window, and worked with each other as a community. In terms of the 15th Amendment, I think my impression is that Sarah Garnett had a very strong opinion. She was for men being able to vote, but she was also very strongly for women being able to vote, and she didn't, she supported one effort, but she did not sit on her hands about the other effort. And that's evidenced by the organizations that she started, and that she spearheaded in many cases.
Jonathan, you have a Harvey, that's good, Harvey.
Could you please review Paul Robeson and the red cap situation that you described?
He was going to school, and like a lot of the one of the things about James Williams was that he particularly, not exclusively, but particularly hired a lot of young black college men so that they could defray their costs. And they came from up and down the eastern seaboard during school breaks, summertime, holiday breaks, whatever, and looked for James Williams. They went to other railroad stations as well, but he was famous for this. And so you had clerics, journalists, linguists, educators who all needed to pay their college education in some way, and they took jobs. I'm sure all of you have this in common. If you went to school, you had some kind of job, whether it was, waiting tables or whatever. And some of those names became famous names, like Paul Robeson. So I don't have any images of him, only accounts of when he went there. The architect who I mentioned, John Wilson, who was the first black architect at Columbia's architecture school, went there, and he talked about playing touch football on the lawn of Columbia with Robeson, while they were red caps. And Adam Clayton Powell Jr. was kind of the spoiled, Adam Clayton Powell Sr.'s son. And he did his little stint there, carrying bags. That's extended.
Okay, Jonathan, you had
No.
Okay, Matt?
Eric, we would really love to have you as a member of GANYC, don't you love us?
I do love it. You know, I've never, and even less so now, guided even remotely full-time. That I didn't have, it was always kind of an ancillary thing. And then, just before I think we did the Zoom thing, I was thinking, well, I'm gonna join now, you know. But I've done even less, you know, because with the pandemic, you know, we all had to find other things to do, and I've ended up doing a lot more talking, but also a lot more research. So it was just, and there are all these other organizations that I kind of floated, so I have limited
A little
pockets.
follow-up.
Yeah.
We have two last
I'm not as
questions.
wealthy as the rest.
Sure.
But I'm thinking of it.
So when did the black schools become part of the New York City school system? Were they absorbed or were they independent forever?
So they were absorbed with the exception of two. So color school number 4 and color school number 3, which was up around 41st Street. And then that principal, who was one of the famous black educators in the country, Charles Reason, he died 1893. The next year, color school number 4 closed. Sarah Garnett goes to number 3, takes over for him. And I think that closed in 1899. And that was it for the colored schools, yeah. And then it was just, yeah.
I think we have one last question.
Okay.
And we'll
So, and I know like you said, the school numberings changed, it went from 4 to 7 and the.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know why, the rhyme or reason for why school numbers change. I think it's the same person who decides the names of hurricanes or the colors of paints. I mean, because it's just like, you know, so.
But
yeah.
was there a color school 5 and the 6, or did it just go from 4
There
to
were
7?
some, yeah, so
and
there was kind of linear, but they kind of all, so I know I got confused at one where there was a colored school number 4, exactly 100 blocks away on 117th Street. And when I was first researching it, I thought, well, they just moved it like a
Right.
congregation moves,
Right,
you know.
right.
That was not the case. And I ignored 98 West 17th Street because, I don't know, I've never lived any place where they just changed the numbers of the, you know. And then finally later I said, oh my gosh, it's the same lot.
Right.
I still haven't figured out why though, so it gets really confusing.
So how many colored schools were there total? The
There
numbers
were-
looked like they were waxing and waning, so
Yeah.
it was like.
There were, I would say there were about 6 or 7. And that's just New York, which is just Manhattan, because Brooklyn had its own system. This is also part of the landmarking procedure, because landmarks landmarked, designated colored school number 3, which is in the Williamsburg section, in Brooklyn. And so it's not new history for them. They don't have to reinvent the wheel in terms of research. You know, it's same general backstory. So that's why it seems such an inordinate amount of time that they're sitting on this.
And so that one in Williamsburg was college school number 3 for Brooklyn.
For Brooklyn,
For Brooklyn.
right. It had its own
Okay.
numerical system.
Okay.
And so when you're researching it, they had a number 4 also, so I have to like, you know, it's like, all right, where are we now? Because all other papers, particularly the black press, is covering black news all over the place, so you have to kind of like, where are we? Same thing with the YMCA's.
Well, thanks so much. Besides the preservation, are you working on this? You're gonna write something up like about this that's gonna be published?
Yeah, so I mean, there's material in my book on it, but I'm also I'm working on another biography right now, but I'm also
Sarah
pushing
Garner.
this. No, it's somebody who was a red cap. He's in the book. He was a Broadway actor and booking agent and Harlem restaurateur. But I'm working on a new proposal for this as a group biography, because there's just so many figures and so many interesting tangents.
Well, great. We'll have you back when you publish your
Yeah.
next biography.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Eric. That was really
For
good.
the dinner, you
Kevin,
want cash,
come
the
up with your reasons.
$35?
I think that was
The
really-
dinner. Cash is okay.
I didn't want to just pull it out.
Yeah, no, I'll.
I've had my computer screen. This was not the joke.
All right, so we're going to move on to our committee reports. I just want to make sure to eject the device properly. I'm gonna turn this off. And so here are Eric. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so we're going to start with our committee report. Let me just unplug this one. This. Do its updates. And then, otherwise everyone will just forget that. So the first up is the awards committee, so I'm gonna take this out of your way. Matt? Another Joe's thing.
Only thing I do humbly. Okay, so the two things that came up since I wrote my report are that if Eric's preservation efforts for that school are a success, what a great candidate they would be for the Preservation Award. So please keep us posted on that. And secondly, Lee is right, it is not a Lincoln Center venue, it is in the general area neighborhood of Lincoln Square. Merkin Hall is part of Kaufman, and they are fantastic and have an absolutely gorgeous venue, and everyone will love it. So, voting for the final nominees in each category will remain open until the end of this month, midnight January 31st. If you have not checked out the awards committee's website, take a look. It is GANYCappleAwards.weebly.com. And if you go on to the blog, you can see a different profile of a different nominee every day. You don't have to do that though, because if you simply go on the hosted nominees page, you can see them all listed, and you can click on the links and do whatever research you like. Super huge kudos to incoming chair, i.e. I'm out of here, incoming chair Sarah Lyons. And for those of you who have already looked at the website, if you're as impressed with it as I am, that's a good example of the kind of stuff you can expect when Sarah takes over. She is a wizard. So, for anyone who might have misplaced their email with the voting link, there was a new one sent out just yesterday by Jeremy Wilcox. Thank you, Jeremy, for that. And if you still have trouble...
I think it was Patrick who sent it out.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry. My humblest apologies, Patrick. All right. Somebody sent out that link, and they're on the board, and their board is a mysterious organization. So thank you, Patrick. Sorry about that. Please do remember that the final round of voting is one where you can submit only once. It's not like those pre-nominations you said earlier. Once you hit the submit button, that is it. You have voted for your winner in each category. So do make sure that you mean it before you hit submit. Now, with that in mind, those of you who are on social media may have noticed there has been a little controversy over one of the nominees. There are some people who don't think they're as wonderful as other people do. So please take a good look at who those nominees are, and remember the important political notion that if you don't vote, you don't get to complain. If a person or organization you don't like, and I see someone who commented on the thread nodding on the subject, wins and you didn't vote, you don't get to complain. So vote. Tickets for the gala will be going on sale very soon, hopefully before the end of the month, before voting ends, and we will be letting you know more about that as we, set up the platforms that we're hashing out. Because we're going to have our various tiers of tickets, as we always do. The show only for one price, the show and the cocktail party for another price, GANYC members for one price, other people for another price, etc. So all of that is going to be coming online in the next few weeks. Now, I would like to, and we'll have an update on that for the February meeting, I would like to offer the rest of my time up here to my deputy chair, Bob Gilbert, because he has something to say about sponsorships. And sponsorships, even more than ticket sales, are what keep us going. Thank you, Bob.
Yes. So, if there is anyone sitting here that has any connection to a company, a business, an organization, an association, that your employer, that you feel would be willing to purchase an ad for the Apple Awards, please reach out to me. We have a letter that we've worked on. We've started emailing it out during the last week. And we're just looking to get as many sponsors as possible. And many of you sitting here don't even know all the connections that you do have. So please reach out to me either at awards@GANYC.org and put Bob Gelber in it for ads, and I'll get you that letter. And Susan is working very diligently on food, beer, wine, and we are working on it. If anyone knows anyone directly related to those 3 items, something you can eat or drink, please reach out to Susan, because she would love to talk to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you guys. Thank you, award. Next up, certification. So certification committee, Michael.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Michael Dillinger with the Certification Committee. So this is going to be rather short. The class starts next Thursday, the 12th. Our first in-person class is 2022. There is still time to register if you are interested and you've been thinking about it. There are many people in this room that can attest to the value of the class, including our president right here, Matthew Baker, Jared, anybody who's been through the course, raise your hand right now. Raise your hand. All right. See? So they can talk to you about it a bit. It's changed over time when some of them went in, but it's still an excellent course, and there's time to register. You don't want to wait till the very last minute, because you will be getting an email. Anybody who registers is going to be getting an email by this weekend with your assignments on how to prepare for the first class. And each class does have a certain amount of reading, study, preparation that goes with it. So you don't want to wait till the last minute because you'll be, oh my God, I got to do it. You know, take a deep breath. It's a fun class. It's really exciting that we're getting to do this again live, and hopefully we'll see more of you. Just another side note: anybody who's been through the class but may not have completed their work, I don't know if anybody who's here right now does that, but they are certainly welcome to join us to complete the work they have missed in earlier programs. We have also thought of allowing past graduates to sit in. However, priority is always given to those who have not been through the course before as first, and then people who need to complete their work to get their certification. So think about it, join us. It's going to be a great class. We've got a great lineup for you, and come see us if you got any questions on it. Matthew.
In the aftermath of COVID, any news on certification maintenance?
There will be an email coming out about that too. We're having a committee meeting tomorrow. We're going to discuss things like that and get that out there. But there will be, where we're trying to keep the maintenance program going as well, because the whole point of the program is not that you finish it and you know everything, but that you have committed to a journey to keep developing as a professional in this industry. So that's why we have the certification maintenance part of it as well. Anything else? Okay.
Can you just go over the 5 modules?
The 5 modules, yes, the 5 modules are sections of the program. It is building a tour, presentation skills, storytelling, logistics, and customer service. And we spend a lot of time on each of those, and to really give you some in-depth working on that and hopefully inspire you to take it even further as you go on. Yes?
Can I ask how many people who in their project, for their final project, created a tour that they actually sold?
Yes. Who have sold their tours? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's at least 5 in the room right now. There are others I know that have successfully marketed their tour, their final project, to a tour operator, and made money. So the course kind of pays for itself, or can. No guarantee. It's up to you. Yeah.
Oh, I was just
I thought you had a question. Yeah.
Mine ended up being virtual, but I did.
Right, yeah, you have to do the virtual tour. I mean, it's fun, trust me, and worthwhile. Anything else? Okay, I'll be back if you have any questions.
Yeah, it's definitely worthwhile. My final project, I got a sold out tour for it on Sunday, so just on trucking, so it's really definitely worth it. Education committee, Nina?
Okay, so, we just thank you for Kevin, for the speaker tonight. We always do little thank yous. And Minna, again, you know, education is working a lot with different committees, always has. And another thank you for Jeremy for doing the Diker Lights tours, December 8th and 13th. And I know a lot of people have been working in Diker, you know, this is the time of year with the great tours. And also, special thanks for, we did, this was industry relations education, because Bob Gelber is on many committees, and we're lucky to have him on education. And so the RISE, we all went to the RISE, so it was sort of a site visit fam. And it was very, I kind of liked it. So, but everyone make up your mind. Maggie Brown, also thank you for the tin building at South Street Seaport, December 7th. February's speaker will be someone you all know, or you may know, Patrick Bringley. And he did some tours for us, I think 3 tours for us during the summer of the Met, based on his experiences being a security guard at the Met. And he worked there for about 10 years, and it was funny going on the tour. He would say hello to all the guards as he was going. But I had some great insights about the Met, and his book is finally coming out in February called All the Beauty in the World. So February is going to be a Zoom meeting, so it's going to be on tape. If you can't, make it, you can always review it. And in addition, of course, GANYC is going to the NFTGA, so we always leave speaker spots to all the people who are attending. A lot of people from education, industry relations, awards are going, so I'm sure we're going to have wonderful reports. March's meeting, I just heard from Eileen Rourke up there. She's part of the committee, and she's been doing some great work, and she's set up, guest speaker will be Kathy Russell, who's the general manager and founder of the Theater Center, where we're going to be having our meeting in March. And there will also be a panel. Note the committee con, that's been postponed to a more better time of year. And we have a PDP in the works, fingers crossed, and we're working on it. Stress reduction for tour guides. Emma came up with the idea. I think we all need it. And this is going to be an in-person tour. I think the board also, so this was inspired by going to these great conferences, which we're going to. We always bump into a speaker who's phenomenal. And we're not going to mention names because we don't know if we're going to get that particular speaker, but came up with the idea of stress reduction. So one more thing, there'll be FAMs to be announced this month, but we have a virtual library. This time of year, you're snug with a hot chocolate, and you can look at our past FAMs, PDPs online, and guest speaker panels, wonderful panels. We have a whole library. Lisa Puccio, one of our stellar members of the committee, came up with the idea of organizing it in some kind of easier order to access, so we have that. And if you have an idea for a FAM tour, gee, this is a great way, if you have a job that someone's going to give you and you want to get it out of your mouth, FAM tours are great. I mean, this is a great way of getting out of it. Joe Sablack, who's this pro, every time he did something for the Municipal Art Society, we were the beneficiaries. Because he would like to get it out of his mouth, and so we're very lucky. And even Eric K. Washington did a couple of FAM tours for us way back. So it's just a great opportunity, and I hope you take advantage of it. Now, it doesn't have to be in person. Now, it's really cold this time of year. So if you have a nice virtual tour that you want to maybe audition and you want to get the kinks out, do it for us. We're your friends. We're not very. We love these things. So we have a proposal link on our website. So just click in, and also we have meeting. We've been very good about meeting. Lisa's been one of our Lisa's cracking the whip at some of these meetings, but we meet the third Wednesday of the month. We've been very consistent about that, except for December, because everyone was working. And it's about 6 p.m. So if you have an idea for a proposal, January 18th, think in your mind, the third Wednesday of every month, you can just kind of gear yourself to thinking of some ideas, clicking on the proposal form, and then join us for a meeting. We're going to be open, since we didn't have committee con, we just have to be opening up our meetings. I don't know, all the time, we're sort of, how education works is we're about 9 people, and we're the core. As I said, Washington DC has 2 people, we have 9, because we're New York City, right? So these are the executive people, the leaders, but, please join us. We have some phenomenal people who have worked with the committee over the years, and you're listed in the index, in the minutes forever. So if anyone wants to look up an expert, you're in the minutes and they know to go to you. If, like they know Jeremy is great for Diker Heights, for instance. So anyway, thank you, and if you have any questions.
Nina, can I have a copy of the agenda?
Oh, yes.
Yes, I know it's government relations, but very so Patrick.
All right, hello everybody, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Nice crowd tonight. All righty, not much new to add, but we've got some encouragement now. I believe I told you a couple of meetings back that Council Member Gail Brewer has informed us that she will reintroduce Initiative 289A to get the guys back on the double decker buses. She, in political speak, she's slow walking, we know. But she has committed to doing the work to get it reintroduced. If it's reintroduced, it's renumbered, and as soon as we get it renumbered, we can start harassing everybody else on the New York City Council who want to get up to 30 sponsors just like we did before. We did ask members to reach out to some of the previous sponsors that are still in the City Council. I hope you have. I did, even though I'm not in their districts, and we did get some encouraging word from Keith Powers, District 4. He has said, as soon as it's reintroduced, I'll support it. And Justin Brannon, out of District 43, has said that when it is reintroduced, he will support it. So, that's 3 out of 30.
All right.
So help me out here, people. I'll need 27 more. So keep getting your council members. And if you're not sure if your council member was an original sponsor, please write me, secretary@GANYC.org. I've got the list. I can keep you informed. I'll very quickly run it by right now. Rivera in District 2, Powers in District 4, Ayala in District 8, Salamanca in District 17, Holden in District 30, Powers in District 31, Brannon in District 43, Yeager in District 44. If you're of any in those districts, remind them, let them know. The bill is going to be introduced by Brewer. Be supportive of it, engage Brewer, and let me know as soon as you hear anything. We ask to hear what's going on with the responses, because we can pass it on to the membership, and that fuels the energy to keep people pushing to get this bill through and done and voted on. And let's see, that's good, that's good. And just a couple of other small items. The next government relations meeting will be on January 11th. Always, everyone in this association is welcome to attend. It is done by Zoom. You can even block yourself out. Don't worry about it. Again, to get the link, secretary@GANYC.org, and I'll send you the link for the January 11th meeting. I believe we're at noon. Oh, yes. Destination Capitol Hill. So cool to hear about the tour bus bill, because we advocated for that. GANYC sent a delegation, we advocated for that bill last year, and it's thrilling to see our industry finally get the federal recognition that we deserve. Now, the next Destination Capitol Hill this year will be April 18th to 19th. That's a trip to Washington. There is a stipend that GANYC will have set up. If you're interested, if you're available, write me again, secretary@GANYC.org. Know that it's a very tight time frame for that. You're gonna come in the night before, there's a debrief, you're gonna be given a packet, you're going to meet with elected representatives and their staff, and then you're gonna go home that same evening. All right, so it's a quick in and out, but it's an in-your-face. Let's face it, politicians know that we keep them in office. They need to know what we deem is important. And tourism and travel, and federal support, yes, that's important to us. So we tell them how important it is, so we will vote for them again. All right? So if you're interested, April 18th and 19th, write me at secretary@GANYC.org. And thank you all, everybody. We'll keep nagging you about writing council members, senators. Sorry, question.
Is it still intro 189, or what do I tell my council?
289A. 289A.
Deadline to submit for Destination Capitol Hill?
I don't have a deadline date yet from USA Travel, so as soon as you know you're interested, at least let me know you're interested, and I can keep you on a short list for information. Kim? Okay, anybody else? Going once, going
What
twice?
happened to the original bill that Justin Brennan was supposed to have under his control? And
We had 30 sponsors and we got knocked out. We didn't get the vote because the original sponsor of the bill, who's now our Secretary of Transportation, decided he was going to put all the energy into a voting bill. And that's caused such an uproar in the last two sessions of the City Council. 289A and about 100 other pieces of legislation were just knocked out, knocked aside. I saw one other hand.
Oh, okay. I don't know if Leonard is here.
Oh, the petition, yes.
Yeah.
January 7th, right?
She's drafted me to go stand in the street with her. I'm sure she'd be happy to have more bodies too.
All right, to repeat so everybody hears. January 7th, Deborah and Leonel Hamanaka will be circulating a petition in Gale Brewers District. The more the merrier, the more signatures. Again, connect with me, secretary@GANYC.org, and we'll make all the connections and you'll have a meeting point. And get out and see your neighbors. Great for anybody who's in Brewers District. Any other questions? Thank you, everybody.
So now, industry relations with Bob Gilbert.
Okay, so as you all know, next week we are at Fogo de Chao once again, where we were last year, where everyone said, how are we going to top this for this year? And somehow Harvey did it, because I had said to him, there's absolutely no way in hell with what they charged us so little last year, they would even allow us in the door if we paid full price. But as my daughter who's in the food industry says, January is absolutely dead and restaurants are dying. So we're bringing them business and we're absolutely thrilled to be back. Now I just want to mention one other thing. On that same night as the Fogo event, there is an NYC & Co. business card exchange that is going to be at City Winery. If there's anyone who is not going to the Fogo post-holiday party and would like to represent GANYC at the NYC & Co. business card exchange, just please email me and we will get you all the information. I have the link to register. Now, so since the last meeting in December, industry relations has been really busy. Harvey and I, as you already know, are one of the numerous GANYC members who are attending the NFTGA conference in San Antonio, January 25th through the 27th. Harvey and Stephanie Simon, an industry relations member and GANYC, of course, active person, is registered to attend the International Inbound Travel Association Summit, which will be February 12th through the 15th in San Diego. And in addition to that, we need other people who are interested to represent GANYC. The American Bus Association Marketplace will be in Detroit, February 4th through the 7th. And NYC & Co. is holding a sales promotion event in Mexico. We don't have specific details, we don't know the city, We don't know the hotel, we don't know the itinerary, but it will be March 5th through the 10th. NYC & Co. is given a scholarship for GANYC to attend, meaning they're paying the registration. Industry Relations Committee will pay your air, your hotel, and whatever meals we allow. So if there is anyone interested in going to Mexico after we have the information March 5th through the 10th, please reach out to me. Also in April, from the 19th through the 21st, New York State Travel Industry Association, NASTIA, their conferences in Oswego, New York. And again, anyone interested in attending, representing GANYC, Industry Relations will foot the bill for that. Now, last week, Harvey and I had a meeting with the Director and Associate Director of Marketing at the American Museum of Natural History. They are becoming a strategic affiliation with GANYC, and we're in the process of them inviting us to the opening of Gilder Hall, the new science center that they've been working on for years at a cost of $431 million. So we will most likely, once it's approved, be having our April meeting at the Museum of Natural History. We're very lucky. Their Director of Marketing is Stephen Braun, who lost his job at Met. He was in charge of marketing at the Metropolitan Museum up to COVID, and they were very welcoming until Stephen was furloughed, and then he was let go, but he bounced back on another great museum. So we will be in talks, and as soon as we have all the details, Harvey and I will release them. Next week, Harvey and I are meeting with the head of touring at the United Nations. They have already become a strategic affiliation with GANYC, and we are looking to have a meeting at the UN and to have some kind of tour. So Harvey and I have been busy with that stuff, which is really what I enjoy. So you see what you're missing now. All right. In the meantime, there was an article that ran in the New York Times business section on Saturday, December 24th.
Yes.
The title of the article was "The Tom Brady of Other Jobs." The article's subtitle was "Meet People Old as Tom Brady in Their Jobs as the Athlete is in His." And our own Harvey Davidson. He along with 8 other individuals who, even at their age past 21, are as active as they've ever been. And I want to say that without Harvey, I couldn't do anything related to industry relations, because everything I learned from Harvey. And it's always a pleasure to be with him. All right, so before I get out of here, February meeting, you all know, is a Zoom, and Patrick Bringley will be our guest speaker. The March meeting is at the Theater Center. I want to thank again Eileen Roth, because she worked for about a year to get us there. And I also want to mention that the head of the Theater Center has invited us back in September for our AGM. And what all of it means is that all of this is free. We're not paying for it. We have a budget of about $800 to $900 a month, but the New York Historical Society, we were guests, we were not charged. When we go to Natural History, we will be guests. We are working also with the head of marketing at the Metropolitan Museum. I've had a meeting with her. We will be invited there as well for a meeting, hopefully in May or June, and an insiders curator-led tour. That meeting will also be a gift. So industry relations has to find a better way to spend all this extra money.
all these conferences.
So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out. Yes, Sue? The Theater Center is located on 50th Street, right in the heart of the Theater District. There's more than one theater. Eileen and I picked the theater that we felt best suits. And that evening, we're gonna have.
Broadway theater, that has a couple of shows that have been running for.
Is that little by stages? No little
No, it's
stages?
different.
No, it's different, it's not them. It's in that neighborhood. Yeah, it's right in that
Snapple
neighborhood.
Theater is, where Fantastic's played for years and years? Is it where Snapple Theater was?
I think we're gonna learn about it tomorrow.
Eileen, can you speak up, because you're the one who's a piece of it.
Yeah, it's around the corner from Azaleas. Yes, sir.
It's behind the old Madison, the previous Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's before my time. Yes.
I'm probably gonna sign up for the certification class. Could I construct a tour through the UN? Like, is that a crazy question?
Well, that, it's not the certification, but also the UN, yeah, talk to the certification about this, because it's industry relations, because also the UN, I work with them, for other things, and they're very tight, it's they're their own thing.
We were very, very fortunate to meet the head of tours at the Intrepid event where GANYC was honored, and Davila Media ran that event. And the two women were there, and they were very willing. They spoke with me and Harvey, and they wanted to meet with us. So they've been trying to do a Zoom for the last 6 or 7 weeks, but I really wanted a live meeting to get in there. So next Thursday, Harvey and I will be at the UN.
So one more question from Lee, and then we're going to have the.
Yeah, I was just curious how the New York Times connected with Harvey. That's so wonderful. But how did that happen?
Who did you pay Harvey for that?
No, the board recommended me because of, I guess, my age.
Sorry, AJ, you had a quick question?
Where is next month's meeting?
It's a Zoom.
February
Could just point of clarification in terms of how Harvey, that was an inquiry from the Times that came through GANYC.
The Times will occasionally contact us, I think it was through the info at email. And so we'll get requests for different things, and, so it comes through GANYC.
Yeah, I mean, like, the Times knows about us for a number of different reasons, but the Times has been honored or nominated a number of times for awards, so it's the kind of thing that something like awards helps to promote GANYC's name. They reach out to us, and we're able to help them tell stories like the story that.
And we do get these requests. We get these requests from other journalists, from other media, and they'll go typically through our info@ganyc.org email, and our vice presidents control that email. They check that email, and they see, they're like, all right, we've got to pass it on here, pass it on there.
And I answer all inquiries that come in through the website. I answer voicemails. I've been doing it for 7 years, and we've had some really interesting questions. Mark, you have?
Yes, the April meeting at the Museum of Natural History, that's,
It's not going to be on the first Wednesday of the month because that is Passover.
Passover.
So it will probably be about a week later, but all of that still has to be approved.
Okay.
Yeah, the board's
That
going
was
to
my
be discussing
question.
meeting dates, and making sure we're not conflicting with any major holidays. Thank you, Bob.
I just looked it up on the internet, and the theater center is where the Fantastics is playing, so just a great idea.
Good.
All right, so membership and?
Hi, I'm Ann McDermott, and I'm your new membership chair. Happy to be here. I just love this organization. I'm so glad I joined. Thank you to Jessie on A Journey's blog, because she's the one who told me about GANYC. She's a blogger. And so, I'm going to make some announcements here, but before I make my announcements, I would like GANYC to give a rousing round of applause to Jonathan Turner for all his service. Holding down the membership fort, Jonathan, and he has handed me all the things now. I have all the things so that I can chime in and I can give you a thing. So, any case, all right. So, we have new members every month. We have new members. We have 3 or 4 new members who usually join us every month. We interview them. So, if you are a new GANYC member, if you joined within the last year, I'm just going to ask you to stand up if you're a new member. You know the procedure. Now you need to get 2 letters so that you can become a full member instead of a provisional member. Not that there's really that much difference, but in any case, welcome, and we're really, really happy you're here. And we, so I was a new member myself 2 years ago. I walked in very shyly to the Brooklyn Historical Society, not knowing a soul, and Deborah was at the desk, and she welcomed me, and here I am standing in front of you now. So, here we go. Get involved. The point is get involved. So GANYC needs you so you can get involved in this committee or any other committee. And one of the things that we want to do is restore happy hours. Tony and Cindy have put together happy hours, like once a quarter we would do that. So I'm going to ask you, so if you know a restaurant somewhere, like for instance, I went to a place in Little Italy when I was preparing for a tour a couple months ago, and I walked into the back room and I said, oh, this would be perfect for a GANYC party. Like you could fit 20 or 30 people here. So if you know a restaurant in your neighborhood that has a party room or some space where it could be fun for us all, just, let us know. Email Tony, email me. I'm not officially switched over on the email yet, but.
Membership again.
Tomorrow.
What?
It's on my list.
Yeah, membership at GANYC.org. Yes, Tony?
Yes, if you know someplace, what we have been doing in the past is we ask the restaurant to grant all of our members happy hour prices throughout the evening until about 9 o'clock or so, something like that. And, hopefully they'll feel that they're being promoted by us. And by the way, tonight, there's a place across the street called the Happiest Hour. And I'm gonna go there afterward, and if anybody wants to go, we're not getting a special deal, there's no reservation or anything, but what the hell? Just across that street, it's called the Happiest Hour. I just love the name, don't you?
So the place that I found is a place called Monero's. It's on Mulberry Street, and they have fabulous pizza, like really good pizza, and they have a really nice room in the back, and they've got some, mafia stories or whatever. So, any case, do you need a mentor? Are you new to GANYC, or would you like to take what you've learned through being in this business and share it with other people? Well, we have a mentorship program here to sort of help new members to kind of learn how the business works. So if you want to be on either side of that, as somebody who's helping somebody or somebody who needs help, just contact me and I will put you in touch with the appropriate people. And a reminder about the certification class. I myself have signed up for the certification class and I'm really looking forward to it. So sign up with Michael for that. Come to the party next week. Buy a ticket, come to the party, that'll be fun, and pay your dues. You need the dues, right, Jeremy?
Yes.
I have a check for you in the back. So, any case, thank you very much, and we'll see how this all unfolds.
Questions for Anne?
Oh, questions, yeah.
Yeah, jump.
Sorry, I just we do have some full members as well. I believe you do full members. I know we have one, but are there any new full members in the room?
Just became full members? Everyone who just became a full member?
Full members.
Slava prolonged the process, but he did it. Yeah. So, and actually, getting to know people at our monthly meetings is a great way to become a full member. You have to have attended a certain number of the monthly meetings, and I forgot how many.
The requirements to go from provisional to, I'll stand up. The requirements to go from a provisional member to a full member is you must have been a member for a minimum of 12 months. And during that time or after have attended a minimum of 4 membership meetings, and then get a letter, and a letter is email basically, you don't have to have mail us a letter. A letter or email from 2 full members just endorsing you. And that could be as long as a paragraph or one sentence saying like, Jeremy Wilcox recommends so-and-so to become a full member. I've gotten to know them and they'd be a wonderful asset. And just a reminder, because we do, when we tell people this every time, people say, well, what's the difference between a provisional and a full member? The only difference is voting privileges. So like we will have board elections coming up this fall, and sometimes when we have potential industry partner applications, we vote on that. But provisional members have full access to all member benefits other than voting privileges. So if you've been a member for 12 months or more and have attended a bunch of meetings, look into getting those letters again, because we will be having board elections this fall. And when you become a full member, you will have privileges to vote in that.
All right, great. And one, Matt Baker wanted to mention one thing, and then we'll be wrapping up.
Yeah, it came to my attention today, and it occurred to me that with the number of people who do Ellis Island tours and tours about immigration and stuff like that, that we might all be very interested in happy stories that we can aid in if we wish. How many people here know former board member Mark Levy? Sure. Yeah, Mark is pretty much retired from guiding at this point, and I just found out that he has been spending the bulk of his energies building housing for migrants who get bussed in by certain people, and he's been gathering furniture for them and building apartments for them. He has a background in it. He has a background in building inspection for the city, and his team is called the East Side Schleppers, from an organization called Ruth's Refuge, which you can find out about on ruthsrefuge.org. And it just struck me as a very cool communal thing for New Yorkers to do for each other, because we were all, even the natives, when you were newborn, you were new to the city once. And people helped us out. So if you want to help Mark help other people out, they can use donations, they can use, helpful efforts, ruthsrefuge.org. And you'll be joining some pretty cool GANYC members. My understanding is that Deborah Blau is also involved.
I like moving stuff around, so.
I think the name East Side Schleppers is a fantastic team name. So I just want to share that with you and encourage, because it struck me as a wonderful thing.
Okay, we have this. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. So yeah, if you could post the information, send us the information. East Side Schleppers, I think it's a
Ruth's Refuge.
Ruth's Refuge.
.org. Yeah.
Yeah, ruthsrefuge.org. Okay, yeah, we've been given the time from the librarians to start wrapping up.
So before we leave, we have to put the room back the way it was.
Yeah,
So before
we're not quite done. Hold on a second.
We haven't motioned to adjourn yet, so please take your seats. Oh, no, let's have emergency name.
So, but just one more thing before we adjourn, because this is our first meeting of the year. You've seen all the great things we've done over this past year. I know we're going to do more great things in the next year to come. We've got new members here, we've got old members here. Get involved. All right, I remember Michael Dillinger, the past president, making a great speech about volunteering. You always see the same people doing stuff, and Harvey's been doing it for a gajillion years. Do it too. You can do it too. Like Anne is now membership chair. She just joined 2 years ago. Get involved. GANYC is only a great organization because of everything you all put into it. So if you want to see great things, we'd love to have you participate, okay? Don't forget, you can always email the board if you have any questions, board@ganyc.org. Jeremy.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Sorry.